Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the PowettPlay Podcast. It's me and Kieran. How are you, Kai?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, John. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Just before we review the first ODI, for everybody who hasn't listened or watched the episode with Tony Gray that we recorded on Friday, I really would recommend people take 20 minutes. It's brilliant to have him on the show and speak about the arts and mentorship and obviously the influences of the greats of the games that can have, and obviously the impact that sort of missing out on. So I do recommend people do take the time to listen to that. In terms of obviously the game through the night, wherever you are in the world, and the first ODI was played, and obviously the West Indies fell short. What did you make, Kieran, of the performance in general?
I think the West Indies batting more or less did a 90% good job. I think the only sort of issue they would have had is probably just a bit of a slow start.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they lost the game necessarily even because of that. I think it's more so Roston bowled a hell of a spell.
Yeah, superb.
But there are too many missed opportunities when he was bowling. I think there was like a 3-over period where there's a drop catch, a missed stumping, a drop catch.
Yep.
And you look at those fine margins, and I think that's where the game sort of got away from the West Indies, because Bracewell and Daryl Mitchell were able to carry on for much longer than they should have been able to.
Yeah.
So West Indies realistically could have been chasing 230, 225, on a pitch that did a lot for the seamers, if we're going to be honest. There was something in it right throughout the game. So I think that's where the West Indies lost it, because for Roston to have that kind of impact on a pitch that wasn't really spinning that much, but he got lots of drift, and he controlled his length well and used the dimensions of the ground well. I think that's where the West Indies will feel as though they lost the match in the field.
Yeah, definitely. I think the point that you mentioned there about Roston and his length, I thought it was absolutely spot on. The way he utilised the fact that there wasn't much turn in the wicket, but how he used his length and, like you said, and his pace, I thought was brilliant. And to bowl, these 10 overs for just short of 10 overs, 1 for 37 goes to show obviously how tight that was, especially in the middle overs. But you mentioned from the bowling perspective as well that there was consistently something in it for the bowlers throughout the whole of the game. But from a batting perspective, I just felt as though it's these starts again and nobody managing to kick on and obviously get that score to see them home, especially in the top order.
Yeah, obviously John Campbell fell early, but then you had a partnership with Casey and Ali Cartanes, both, as you mentioned, they got starts probably on the slower side in terms of the strike rate,
yes.
But both got starts, absorbed a lot of balls but weren't able to carry on. Shea also got a start, wasn't able to carry on. So, generally Casey and Shea we've seen normally go a bit deeper into the innings. So that's that. Ali Cartanes we've seen get these starts as well, who needs to start converting them. I generally don't watch with the volume on, as I said, but yesterday we were watching with it on, and you sort of heard Ian Bishop alluding to the same as well in terms of Alex stats across formats, and having scored 2 centuries in first class cricket and list A cricket, but hasn't gone on to get bigger stats as well, and getting 2 half centuries in his first 5 ODIs, but nothing after. And I think that he's showing that he has the ability to make runs at the international level. So I think that's where the frustration comes for most people with him, because he's showing that he has the ability. To get a start is the hardest thing.
Yes.
And so you need to find a way to be able to get him past these starts now, because he has shown that he has the ability, but he needs to start kicking on. Sherfane Rutherford, however, then nice return to form, as we spoke about in one of our previous episodes. I thought that playing a longer format of the game, where he has more time, where he doesn't have to rush, where he doesn't feel rushed, will benefit him. And so said, so done. So very happy to see that return to form for him. And the West Indies will be hoping that this is the kickstart of something good for him personally.
Yeah, definitely. Going back to obviously from the top of the order perspective, like the run rate aspect is, I think if you are going to go off, get 29 off 58 in Alec Athene's is a situation, or Katie Carty 32 off 67, so you go in at a sort of run rate of 50, give or take, you have to then go big to be able to then finish your innings with an 80 or a 90 strike rate to then, allow your team to be in a situation to go and win the game. So I think they've got to, figure out ways. Well, more obviously speaking about Alec Athene's, because we've covered it over here, is that he's got to figure out a way of whether it's a concentration aspect to it. Something has to develop within him now to be able to get to that point where he gets to 20 and 30 to then go big. We mentioned obviously about batting time and how he can obviously go about that, but whether it's a case of utilising some mental aspect when you're at the non-strikers, maybe just to take that couple of minutes off to be able to then go again, really.
And I fully agree with that, but just to expand that point, I actually didn't mind the slow start because, as I said, the pitch had something in it. And the West Indies batters have shown throughout the T20 series, the low order batters, and now in this first ODI, that once there's a platform, they can sort of chase down targets. They can make up at the end. So I don't mind building that platform. As you said, if you're going to absorb that many balls, you need to go on and score something a bit more substantial, which helps the team in the long run. So it's either they're going to have to find a way to, as you said, absorb that pressure, but sort of have some sort of mental clarity where, in the case of Alec Athene's, for example, okay, I'm in the 20s, I'm in the 30s, you start visualizing, okay, get off straight, instead of thinking boundaries or whatever the case is. Where can I find the single? Just keep looking for singles, keep rotating the strike, and before you know it, you're 30, 40, 50, whatever the case is.
Was the 11 they selected pretty much as what you expected?
Based on the players available, generally I'm not a huge fan of playing so many all-rounders. You saw it was sort of like Jaden Sears as the only out-and-out bowler, and then he had 6 sort of makeshift all-around options. I believe in picking specialist bowlers, but I mean, because there was so much on offer in terms of seaming it around, it sort of worked to the benefit of the West Indies. And we have to give credit to Matthew Ford again with another amazing opening spell.
Yes.
I think Shea used him well in terms of getting 7 overs out of him up front because of what was on offer.
Yeah.
I would have probably tried to get all 10 out of him if he could.
Okay.
Because the back end is not necessarily his strength. And if you can sort of get that out of him, because he does an amazing job in terms of striking up front. Like, he gets you early wickets. Yeah. And so that controls the run rate, puts the opposition behind the 8 ball. Yeah. So I would have tried to get all 10 out of him if I possibly could, but I think that Shea used him brilliantly yesterday.
How I was watching the game, how important is the role of Justin Graves within that side at the minute?
I think it's growing. It's definitely growing. You look at him with the ball, he's an unassuming character, but he has a knack of getting wickets. Yeah. And then you look at him with the bat, you wouldn't assume that he's someone that you would sort of peg as a finisher, but he's been evolving in this role. Personally, I would like to see him at some point get a chance to open the batting, because I know that's what he does in domestic cricket and does it really well. You look at what he's doing sort of at the back end of the innings. If we give him more time to bat traditionally how he normally bats, I think that will benefit him and the team as well. So hopefully he gets that opportunity, but for now, in the role that he's at, he's doing an amazing job. And I guess that's why, as much as there's been calls or cries for a Jason Holder to come back into the team, Justin hasn't done anything wrong to merit losing his place either. Yeah.
No, I'm with you on that. And when we're talking about credit as well, in terms of Matthew Ford, I thought Darryl Mitchell batted extremely well as well in those conditions as well, and he deserved, he was a brilliant century. And obviously from their perspective, it set up a total that allowed them to to sort of defend that. What sort of, from a New Zealand perspective, what sort of takeaways have you picked up so far, including the T20s as well, really, from their side of things?
I think that from their side of things, they'll be thinking that the West Indies aren't finishing games off, so they're gonna expect to have like little blips in the field where they get second, third opportunities. Those partnerships carry on longer than they do, and somehow that they'll get over the line in the end. I know you mentioned Daryl Mitchell there. What I'd like to see the West Indies do is from earlier on in his innings, force him to hit the ball through the offside. He's obviously someone that's very strong. He always looks to take you down the ground and through mid-wicket. He's very strong in the pull shot. I would go very early to him, forcing him to hit you through extra cover, over extra cover, through point, that kind of stuff. So you might want to set him unconventional fields earlier on, maybe more so like a death bowling type of field where you have two back on the offside with long off and maybe a long on and deep mid wicket instead of deep mid wicket, deep square and long on, and force him to hit the ball in the area that he's not as prolific, because he is their main threat in terms of consistency. I think he's ranked top 10 in the world right now, averaging over 50. So, try and force him to do something that he doesn't want to do, and see how that works out. That is how I'd look to attack him going forward.
I think obviously collectively, I think we sort of touched on it briefly. They have this real team environment, team spirit within there at the minute where they just find ways of winning games. And I do think the point you mentioned there is obviously the point of West Indies don't seem to be getting over the line with it, sort of thing, with those key game situations. But with that in mind, do you see any personnel changes for the second ODI? Given, I know we've obviously discussed the squad a little bit, but can they really make many more changes?
I don't think so. As I said, I think it's in the field that the West Indies lost the game. Not even so much with the ball or anything. I think that the guys that played consistently bowled wicket taking deliveries, created a lot of opportunities, and it's just that period, that 6 over period where Roston was bowling, and every time, every over, it was a drop catch, a missed stumping, a drop catch again. That sort of takes the game away from you. You can't allow things like that to happen.
No, especially when the bigger objective is obviously the qualification at the end of the line as well. Like, it's so important just to make sure that you've got those little margins that just have to add up together to win these games of cricket. So.
100%. And obviously New Zealand being such a hard place for the West Indies to win traditionally anyway. Any opportunities you get to win, you want to sort of stamp that out. So now the West Indies will be looking at it as they should have won 3-1 in the T20 series and now will be 1-0 up. But it's just not finishing or closing out games as they should.
No, I'm with you on that completely. But we'll see how it goes anyway in the second ODI, which is Wednesday, I believe it is. Tuesday or Wednesday, I think it is. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, guys, do let us know your thoughts in terms of how the first ODI went. Continue, please. We really appreciate all the comments and we appreciate all the likes we've been getting. So thank you very much for joining us on another episode of the PowettPlay Podcast. Thank you.